Start.
So this demonstration shows you how to set up a bottle biology system that aligns with GLOBE. Items that you're going to need to set up this system: you're going to need a bottle that has the top cut from the bottom with a hole punched in the cap, and a cotton cord wick. This cotton cord is actually a pull string cord that can be ordered online, but it's critical that it's cotton. The other things we need a soilless seed starting mix. It's very important that it's soilless for the seeds that we're going to be using. This is about a half a cup of that mix. You need vermiculite, roughly 1/8 to 1/4 of a cup of vermiculite. We need fertilizer pellets. These fertilizer pellets can be ordered with the fast plant seeds that we're going to use from Carolina. And then we need 4 Wisconsin fast plant seeds. The other tools we're going to be using, we'll use a spoon to be able to allocate our soil and our vermiculite. We will use a toothpick to be able to remove our seeds from the seed card. And we will use a ruler to make sure that our wick is at the proper length. So to begin, we do want to make sure our wick is at a proper length. If students are old enough to measure, that length should be about 5.5 centimeters of the wick sticking out from the bottom, and this is an 11 centimeter wick. If students are not old enough to use a ruler, then when we're looking through the top of this bottle and we can see these lines, the top of that wick, if we look straight through it, should show up somewhere between the first and the second line. It should not go above that second line. When we put the top of this bottle into the bottom, and we're calling the bottom our reservoir, that wick should just barely touch the bottom of the reservoir. Now we're ready to add our soilless mix. And if you're using a spoon, I'm going to use about 4 of these spoonfuls. I need to make sure my wick stays centered so I can add my soilless mix. But before I proceed, I'm going to make sure that I pull that wick back to center, and I'm going to press this mix down so it's somewhat compacted in the bottom. All right, the next step is going to be to add our fertilizer pellets, and we have 8 fertilizer pellets that get added to this small system. This is a system using a bottle that's about 1/2 liter. When adding the pellets in, we want to make sure that they wind up being scattered through the system and not all on one side. Children might have a difficult time dropping one pellet at a time, and that's okay because it's fine to pick this system up after you've dropped the pellets. You can use a toothpick or your fingers to move any of the pellets around just to make sure that we've got a good scattered distribution and none of them are sitting right side by side. We don't have a clump of all 8 pellets in one area. All right. So the next step is to finish adding our soil, and what we want to do when we add the soil, we want to make sure that we just cover the top of that wick. So I'm going to use my spoon again to add more of my mix, and I know I keep referring to it as soil. It's our soilless seed starter mix. As I'm doing this, I'm going to keep an eye on that wick and make sure it stays centered. If it ever gets a little bit pushed out of center, I'll just push it back as I'm adding this in. Since I can still see that top in there, I'm going to add at least one more good heaping spoonful. And then we're going to push that down. And I'm trying to make sure that I don't see that wick sticking out. So if I look in the center there, I don't see the white of the wick anymore. It's just covered. All right. So our next step is going to be to make sure that this soilless seed mix is moist enough to receive the seeds. So I'm going to use some water. You can use tap water or water in a bottle. And we're just going to pour a little bit of water in here at a time. And I want to have enough water that I start seeing water drop from the very bottom of this wick. And patience is key here. We don't want to add too much. There it goes. We can see the water coming down the wick, and there's some drips. So that is enough water. And the next step is going to be to add our seeds. So our seeds are on this seed card. And I'm going to keep them on this nice white card so it's easy to see. To open up this card, the children should be able to see a little pocket in the side of the tape. If they bend the card to the side, that'll pull that side up so they can get a hold of it. They want to lay it down once they've pulled that up so that the seeds don't wind up going everywhere. And we're going to peel this up really slowly. I'm going to get one seed at a time. I'm going to use this toothpick to just scoot this seed, to scoot this seed off of the tape. And there's that seed. And then we're going to pick that up and we're going to drop one seed at the top. We're going to drop one seed at the bottom. We'll drop one seed to the left, and we'll drop our last seed over to the right. The very last step is to cover our seeds, and we're going to be using our vermiculite to cover our seeds. So I'm going to use my spoon again because I just want to sprinkle a little bit of vermiculite over the top. And so I'm going to use 1 to 2 spoonfuls of vermiculite is about all I'm going to need over the top of this to just cover that top. I'll push that around to make sure all of my edges are covered, but you can see that there's no soil showing out of the top, and that means my seeds are covered. And we have just a thin layer of vermiculite over the top of that. The last step for the top of this system is to water the top again just to the point where that vermiculite changes color. So I'm just adding a little bit of water at a time and trying to add just enough to where now that vermiculite is dark, it's no longer light in color. The very last step, and if you have students working in pairs, you'll want to have one student holding the top while the other student is going to fill the bottom of this reservoir. And what I'm going to notice is where that cap ends. And if I look through here, I notice the cap is right about at this line here. I don't want the water to touch the cap, so I'm going to make sure that I note where that is. I'm 1-2 lines down on this bottle. Students can also use a Sharpie and put a mark at where that cap is, and just make sure that they fill the water to below that line. So I'm going to pick this up, and I'm going to fill this up to below that second little line from the top. And I'm going to stop there. When I put this in, we can see the water's pretty high, but it doesn't touch the cap. That is your bottle biology system that can sit under a growing light or in the window to let our Wisconsin fast plant seeds grow. Have fun growing your Wisconsin fast plant seeds in your bottle biology system.